welcome to On the Couch with
Shuntai Hill?
and Johnell Allen Bay. So
Yes.
we got a hot topic right now.
Yes. Today,
You know why it's hot? Because Shuntai is a sex therapist, right? And we got on the show today Mr. Eddie
Capparucci.
Yes,
I love that last name, Capparucci.
Capparucci.
thank you.
He's going to be here. He's talking about fetishes.
Yeah, he's
Capparucci,
talking about fetishes,
right?
kinks, and obsessions.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, Eddie.
Well, I'm a Christian counselor. I'm licensed by the state of Georgia. I have a private practice here in Marietta, Georgia.
Okay.
I started out, I've only been a counselor for about 10 years. I was in corporate America for many years, recovering sex addict myself. Didn't realize that's what I was until I was almost 40.
Wow.
You know, I just thought I was a womanizer, that kind of guy who just does what he does. And then I came to understand and realize it was about unresolved childhood wounds that got me to where I was. And it was about that time that, you know, always been a believer, but then God really took a hold in my life.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay, this is great. I now have a relationship with Christ. This is really good.
Right.
And he then turns around and says, oh, guess what? I don't want you in corporate America anymore. I go, I have something else for you. And I'm like, no, that's not good. I like this. I like my job. I like the money I make. I like my status. He goes, no, we're not doing this. So I fought him for 2 years until finally he won, and I went back to school, got another master's degree, did all the state work, and started my practice. And as I started my practice, these guys started coming into my office that looked like me, you know, when I was struggling. And with that, I decided, you know what, this is what he wants me to be doing. I am now working with men and helping them to deal with not just their addiction, but also transform their hearts.
So, Eddie, what's the difference between someone really enjoying sex, right, and it becoming an addiction?
Well, because an addiction will spill over to other aspects of your life, okay? It becomes more of an obsession. It's gonna impact your work. You may wind up watching pornography at work, or you're objectifying women and trying to see if you could date them. You may be spending time just on an app, seeing if you could do a hookup after. So it doesn't just affect your relationship, it affects other parts of your life too, where you can wind up getting in trouble, including legal issues too.
Okay. So when we're talking to people a lot in the work that we do, there is a difference between, or are there differences between what's a kink and what's a fetish?
Yes, there are. I mean, a kink is an activity that people engage in that most of society doesn't really, you know, agree with. Like, for example, group sex, okay? Most people don't feel like we should be involved in group sex, but for these people, they enjoy that. Bondage, discipline, S&M, you know, now things like 50 Shades of Grey have made it a little bit more normalized, that they say. But for the majority of people, they look at that and say, ooh, I don't know if I want to be whipped while I'm having sex. So
I don't think so.
no. So therefore, you know, that's what that is. A fetish, a fetish on the other hand, though, is we require that object or that objectification in order to get aroused and in order to continue to enjoy the sex.
Okay, so arousal may not take place unless that fetish is.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
And that's how it becomes habit form.
Yes, well, yes, and you need it constantly, right.
You know, once you start something, you know, and that's what you're into, and once you get to the point where you have to have that in order to function, then it becomes into that other area there.
That's correct, right. And then you wind up with a partner who's wondering, why do we have this 3-ring circus happening every time we get together to have sex? And they're feeling very objectified, and they're feeling very used.
Yeah, why you gotta put that rap music so loud? Anyway, yeah. So how did you get to the point, because you're speaking for someone who's experienced some stuff. What was your breaking point where you say, I need help, right?
Yeah,
That had to happen.
Right, it did. I blew through 2 marriages because of it. And both times, the woman there wanted to, keep the relationship going.
Right.
But I knew there was just something wrong with me. There's something wrong. I'm just going to break your heart again, and I'm not doing this. And it was about 38 years old, and I said, you know what? I have to go to therapy
Okay.
just to find out what's going on. And I did, and that's when I found out, oh, I have an abandonment disorder. Okay, I have an attachment disorder, and it's about abandonment. So therefore, every relationship I was in, it was 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Okay.
Never fully attached or bond with anybody.
And most times, and I always go back to this, our childhood experiences relate to how we make choices and what we do as an adult. If it's not the choices that we make or our experiences as an adult, we can have a normal childhood
Right.
and get screwed up by
absolutely.
relationships and people.
Right.
But in
absolutely.
this case of your book, it's about going back to the childhood.
It is, because again, I believe that it is the unresolved childhood wounds that impact us today. They still haunt us today. We're not aware of them. We're not conscious of it, and therefore, we're letting, and I use the inner child, we're letting this kid run the show. He's running our lives, and we don't even realize it. Once we become aware of that, and we know he's there, we understand, or she's there, and we understand what they want is comfort. And the way they get comfort is distractions. And the way they find distractions through different addictive behaviors.
Okay. Well, when you talk about children, I am very childlike, but I'm not childish. So does that mean I have this thing going where I could just be pulled over there?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I mean, it is, but I will say this, that the men I work with, and again, I work exclusively with men, they are immature.
Okay.
And what I mean by immature is they are, from a relationship standpoint, there was nobody in their lives who sat and talked to them to say, hey, this is the way you deal with emotional pain.
Right.
So they had to come up with their own solution. I'm in this distress, what do I do? And what they decided, again, a child doesn't have a lot of worldly, experiences.
Right.
They also function more on emotional-based thinking than the cognitive thinking. So they come up with the most logical conclusion, how to fix it. I won't think about it. And how do they not think about it? They find ways to distract themselves. It starts off with, fantasy in their head, or play, or TV, or food, whatever it might be, and somewhere along the line they stumble across sex, and now that is like the ultimate distraction. It is like stimulation like they've never seen, and it's something they just continue to run to.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
So would any of these men have been diagnosed at some point early childhood with like an ADHD?
Oh, there are a lot of them. No, they're not diagnosed. But yes, now as adults, they are. There's many.
Yeah.
The other thing that they have, a large majority of them, and this is in the new book I'm actually working on, is they suffer from mood disorders, particularly anxiety, depression, which are cousins. So therefore, what they had was this anxiety because they grew up in an environment, and you were talking, I've heard before in your past shows, talking about trauma, and you know what? All parents, there could be good parents, but they still don't do it right because of their own path. They don't know how to emotionally engage with a child. They don't know how to bond properly.
Well, there's no manual for
No
child rearing.
directions.
It's hit and miss.
Yeah, no direction. So, but with that, the kid suffers because, again, nobody shows them what is that model for a relationship.
Yes.
And when that happens, now they go into a new relationship, and they've learned about sex through pornography, and they're thinking, oh, that's what she wants.
Right, yeah.
So we're going to take a quick break here, Eddie. But when we come back, we're going to find more about Johnell's inner child
And my
his childlike
fetishes.
behavior. So more with Eddie and fetishes when we return.
On the Couch with Shuntai and Johnell focuses on educational, humorous, and insightful topics based on extraordinary lives of real people. Each episode provides real talk from real people.
What makes you want to change? there's three things that, make people change: frustration, inspiration, or desperation. Which one you want to choose?
Because anger, let's not acknowledge that anger is also a survival.
Okay.
It's part of survival. It is a natural emotion that comes with survival. And so you're going to have anger, you're going to have sadness, you're going to deal with grief. And so our job is not to erase those emotions, but to get what you need out of those emotions to move forward, get the tools that you need from that so it can be constructive.
Hey, you know what? This is the way you live life to the fullest.
Okay.
This is the way relationships are the best. This is the way God wants it for
But
you.
there's a cleansing, there's an educational process when you talk about some of the things that you experience, because oftentimes you're not the only one that's gone through it. And that's where the embarrassment comes in, when we think we're the only one that's been treated this way, or how could he have done this to me? Other people have gone through similar things.
I was incarcerated for 29 years. I've been home now for 28 months and 8 days. I'm excited. What time
Wow.
is it?
Wow, I don't know.
And 4 hours. So I'm excited to be here.
So Johnell, why don't you start with telling us about your story and your journey? How did you, tell us a little bit about your backstory.
Join Shuntai Hill, a certified counselor, and Johnell Allen Bay, a life coach and relationship expert, weekly for On the Couch with Shuntai and Johnell.
And welcome back. I'm Shuntai Hill, and I'm here on the couch with
Johnell Allen Bay, and we're talking about going deeper. And, when I picked this up and I saw that, we were talking about sex, I was like, yeah, this is my kind of book. And then it started getting into my inner child thing. And we were talking about earlier that my childlike behavior. And so speak with us more about just the development, because you talked about early childhood and how you pick things up. If you come with parents who are very intimate, when your dad walks around in his underwear and that's okay, mom's naked, you feel good that sex is what you're supposed to be doing, You don't look at it as something terrible. But could it be if you just having just a lot of sex, is that bad?
It's not so much about sex.
Okay.
What it's about is emotional connection, emotional intimacy. So if you have
speak up a
parents,
little bit, because I'm having
oh,
a
I'm
hard
sorry.
time hearing
So
you.
if you have parents
Right.
who are able to emotionally nurture you,
Okay.
connect with you, they can help you deal with your pain points. They show affection. They show that they give you a lot of praise.
Right.
You're gonna be raised in what we call the secure, attachment sort of model.
Okay, right.
And so therefore, for you, you're not going to have a whole lot of issues when it comes to relationship. You know what a healthy relationship is. It's those children who are in the home, the environment, where a parent may be absent when it comes to providing those types of things. Therefore, now that kid is hungry for it. And in my book, there's several children. I've identified 9. And one of them, for example, is the unnoticed child. He just didn't get noticed growing up. So therefore, now as an adult, if people come toward them, even though they're married, they're like, ooh, they're like a moth to the flame. They just can't move away.
Okay. So share with us the types of fetishes. I mean, I could imagine that there's hundreds.
There's
maybe
thousands.
of fetishes.
Yeah, there are many.
She's a sex therapist. She knows.
There are many different types of fetishes, and usually fetishes break down into those of body parts, and then the other side is about objects. So, a person may become obsessed with a person's legs or earlobes, armpits. Okay, there are people from armpits. Feet are a huge fetish. But then there's the other. Butts, yeah. But that's where, that's what they want to focus on when they're having sex. They want to focus on that body part. And you think about it, what you're doing, you're just objectifying that person. You're not looking at the whole person. And then we go to the other side when we talk about objects, and that can be anywhere from clothing, whether it be shoes, boots, gloves, lingerie, rubber, just name, there's many different things. Or it could be just objects in general. There was a guy who said he was sexually aroused by his car. Okay, that's, I still can't figure that one out, and he didn't do a good job explaining that. But there are people who get, they just get excited by the objects that are out there.
Can you get aroused in the car with someone? Is that a fetish?
That's not a fetish.
Okay,
That's
I
just,
just want to make sure.
that's usually being youthful.
Okay, just trying to check to make sure, make
Your
sure I
fetish
don't-
meter?
Right, 'cause there's a lot here. So you talk about fetishes, and usually in our culture, when we talk about a fetish, we think, that's something that ain't for us, But what's the correlation of black to white? Have you done case studies on blacks, and what do you see from those studies there?
Yeah,
Could you give that to us?
The people who have fetish, it's a very small percentage of the population. It's only about 3%, but it goes across all geographic and demographic parameters. The idea with a fetish, what happens is one of two things. One, at some beginning stage of life, you start to sexualize an object.
Okay.
Okay, and this usually starts around age 4.
Oh.
So it starts at a very young age that is there, and there is a sense of, and that arousal at that time isn't so much sexual as it is comfort.
Okay.
Give me great comfort in that sense. So therefore, they're just because of their environment. The other one is due sometimes to trauma. So for example, if you have a guy who keeps getting rejected by women,
Right.
all right, he may at some point, again, because his self-worth is so low, he finds being aroused by being in relationship where he is a more submissive person.
Okay.
And therefore he's always yielding power to her because he can't be strong because he's been taught you're not strong.
So you may find that guy with a leash around his neck on all fours.
You may be, exactly. Or you may find him giving his wife to other men while he watches because he feels like, I'm not worthy enough to be with her.
Yes. This is all interesting.
It is.
So
It is.
tell us more about the work that you're doing and what's next for you.
Yeah, as I said, in our practice, I practice with my wife. I handle the men and dealing with them and trying to not just work on their addiction, but to move beyond that because, again, they don't know how to do relationships and they don't know how to experience joy.
Okay.
So therefore, what I've done, I've identified 12 different blind spots. For example, they're very inwardly focused. They need to learn to become outwardly focused. They're not curious about their mate. They need to become more curious. They can't sit with their emotional pain. They have to learn to do that. So I have 12 of those. So we're not just teaching them to, learn how to manage their addiction.
Right.
We're also teaching them, hey, you know what? This is the way you live life to the fullest.
Okay.
This is the way relationships are the best. This is the way God wants it for you.
Right.
Yeah, so I like that you've given a solution. Everyone throws out a lot of problems, but to be able to have a solution for the problem is very key to solving any problem that we
Well,
have.
for me, and the whole basis with
Okay.
that book is about the why question.
Okay.
Why does sex have a stronghold on my life? Because I believe if you answer that question, then that empowers you. I now know what this is about. I know what those emotional triggers are.
Okay.
If I keep them, I'm mindful of it.
Right.
So when it happens, put out the yellow caution flags. Got to slow everything down. How's this going to impact me? And then, as I tell everyone, what you feel versus what is real are two different things most of the time.
But when you just broke that down, you make it so simple. But is it really that simple?
It's simple, but it's not easy.
So
Man,
we will
how do you
find
get that?
out after the break why it's so simple or not so simple.
Right.
More with Eddie Capparucci and his book, Going Deeper, and he'll talk about more of his new book when we return from the break.
On the Couch with Shuntai and Johnell focuses on educational, humorous, and insightful topics based on extraordinary lives of real people. Each episode provides real talk from real people.
What makes you want to change? There's three things that, make people change: frustration, inspiration, or desperation. Which one you want to choose?
Because anger, let's not acknowledge that anger is also a survival.
Okay.
It's part of survival. It is a natural emotion that comes with survival. And so you're going to have anger, you're going to have sadness, you're going to deal with grief. And so our job is not to erase those emotions, but to get what you need out of those emotions to move forward, get the tools that you need from that so it can be constructive.
Hey, you know what? This is the way you live life to the fullest.
Okay.
This is the way relationships are the best. It's the way God wants it for
But
you.
there's a cleansing, there's an educational process when you talk about some of the things that you experience, because oftentimes you're not the only one that's gone through it. And that's where the embarrassment comes in, when we think we're the only one that's been treated this way, or how could he have done this to me? Other people have gone through similar things.
I was incarcerated for 29 years. I've been home now for 28 months and 8 days. I'm excited. What time
Wow.
is it?
Wow, I don't know.
And 4 hours. So I'm excited to be here.
So Johnell,
It's a journey.
why don't you start with telling us about your story and your journey? How did you, tell us a little bit about your backstory.
Join Shuntai Hill, a certified counselor, and Johnell Allen Bay, a life coach and relationship expert, weekly for On the Couch with Shuntai and Johnell.
And welcome back to another
On the
segment.
Couch with
Shuntai Hill.
and Johnell Allen Bay, and we got who?
We have Eddie Capparucci.
Eddie Capparucci, and this book
He's
is
the author.
entitled Going Deeper. And before we went on break, you were just giving us this plan of action, and it looked all cute, and you made the caution flag. There was a yellow caution, and then it's that simple. Because I know when I'm on, if I got a sex drive, I ain't got a fetish from what you said, but when I'm feeling, I'm raging. Do what I gotta do.
Well, I have to tell you, I never heard of my therapy referred as cute. But that being said, it is simple,
Okay.
because the keys to it is awareness, understanding yourself, self-reflection.
Okay.
What drives me to think, feel, and do what I do?
Right.
If we understand that, and that's a lifelong process, we should be doing that constantly on a regular basis, because we can continue to uncover different things in our life in those areas. So if I know this, now I need to learn to be mindful of what's really going on in my life. Too many of us, our head is down and we're running through life, and we're just not aware.
Right.
We're totally oblivious, and that's when you're gonna get blindsided.
Okay.
That is when you're gonna get whacked.
I agree with a lot of things, but I keep on thinking when I'm in my bedroom, I'm free. At some point, right, living my life, when it's just me and my girl, I feel that, you know what? I don't need no static about no thinking. I just need stimulation, and it's just us. I don't want to be thinking too much, because you got me thinking and all this here, and I got to figure this out, and am I making a right decision, doing it? I don't need that. I need something that's just going to get me where I need to be, and I'm exploring because I'm free to be able to be me. Isn't that what sex is?
Well, you're talking about healthy sex.
Oh, okay. then.
Okay, we're not
Again.
we're not talking about healthy sex
I need
here.
to check to make sure that I'm okay, y'all.
Yeah, no.
Thank you.
You're talking about God's design for sex, okay? And you're right. It's me and my girl, and I'm right there. But that's not what this is. Remember, this is people who are abusing sex.
Okay.
These are people who their obsession with sex is spilling over. One is spilling over into their own relationship, where they are now betraying their spouse. They're making their spouse feel less than. They think it may be their problem, and it's not at all.
Okay.
It can spill over, as I said, into the workplace. It winds up affecting the whole family, because now we have a division that's going on here. So this is unhealthy. I'm trying to get people to your position in there.
Thank you. I appreciate you calling me healthy.
And just like Johnell, with issue that people may deal with,
Yeah.
it's not an issue, really an issue, until it starts to spill over into other parts of your life, causing havoc.
Okay.
So you're okay to a certain extent.
So, interpret, it's all fun and games until somebody gets their eye put up, right? Okay.
I've only known him for 20 minutes. I can't comment. So.
So you're in this business, the therapeutic world with the obsessions and fetishes and pornography addiction, along with your wife. How is it working with your spouse?
Oh, it's amazing because, as I said, it was a calling from God. For her, so after I went back to school about 3 years later,
Right.
she felt, you know what, I'm going to walk away from corporate America too, and I'm going to do that. So she went back to school, did her work and such. So yes, we worked together. It's really funny because, you work together in a practice, you don't see each other. Because again, it's like our schedules are a little bit off, so even though she's in the next office,
Right.
even like we're sitting at the water cooler all the time
Right.
and doing that. But we do, because what we tell clients, because most of the time I'm working with the husband, she's working with the wife,
Right.
and we tell them at the beginning, you know what, we're going to be sharing information. We're going to be sharing notes
Yeah.
about what's going on. This way, what it does, it really gives us a very healthy dynamic, because people have to come in and they have to be very truthful.
Yes.
Yes.
About
absolutely,
things.
Definitely.
In order for therapy to work, you have to be truthful. You have
Yes.
to give below the
Totally
surface.
transparent.
Yes,
and-
so it's very enjoyable. I mean, we are extremely blessed that we are put in this place. And as I tell people, I've never felt more at peace in my life than when I'm sitting in that counseling chair.
Wow.
And that's crazy because you think about what comes at me, but I just feel very blessed by all
Well,
of it.
definitely it's your calling. We definitely can see that and see that you've impacted the community who suffers from these
Thank
things
you.
here. And that's brilliant.
And you have a new book that's coming out.
Yeah, I'm in the midst of still writing it right now. It's called Going Deeper, and the reason to go beyond treating the addiction.
Okay.
And that's what I was talking about before. I identified those 12 pain points. See, what happened was there was a woman, one of my clients, I was working with him for about a year.
Okay.
He had had a few affairs, and he was complaining, she's not coming to me, she's not coming close.
Right.
So I brought her in, I said, hey, I just want to, see how things are going. And, do you think, what's the obstacle? And she sat there and she leaned over on her couch like this to look at me.
Right.
And she said, well, you know what? For the last year, he's been working with you, and he's telling me he's no longer having affairs. Well, he was telling me that when he was having affairs, and I thought that was it. But she goes, I haven't seen any other behavior change. He still comes home and doesn't really engage with us. His phone is still attached to his hand, all of these things. So therefore, why should I believe him now?
Right.
And I was like, wow, we need to go beyond just treating that
yeah.
to change the heart.
What is the success rate when
For-
people receive therapy
Once
for
they
their
go through
addiction?
your program.
Well, I would say, again, I've never done an assessment on it, but I would say about 80% of the people,
Those that fail because
they don't do the work.
Okay.
They don't
You got to put in.
Well, first and foremost, it's because maybe they're still in denial about it. They've been dragged into therapy. There's not too many of those, but for the most part, they just don't do the work. Or they think, oh, okay, I'm good, everything's fine. And they're not, but they're running away from you. And, but again, that's where my wife working with the wife kind of keeps it, because I sit there and say, he's not ready to go.
Right.
Because my allegiance is to the women. It is not to the men.
Can you say that again?
My allegiance is toward the women. You are not alone. I've had women cry when I've said that.
Listen, I knew something.
They've cried.
There was some energy here, folks. I knew something, and I have to represent men. And whenever someone goes against us, I could just feel something. I felt it. But we want to say one thing. Our show is based on ordinary people living extraordinary lives. And I must admit, you live in one. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate you, and I'm going to hold on to you and give you some of my male energy, so therefore that you can start caring for us.
I hear from you guys all the time.
And thank you so much, Eddie
Thank you,
Capparucci,
seriously.
for joining us. And
Yeah.
if you're on Amazon or
I am, any of 'em.
online, Going Deeper with Eddie Capparucci. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.
Until next time, this is Shuntai Hill.
I'm Johnell Allen Bay.